Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with Moonlight #1. Now, this was by request. I cannot remember the person's name who requested this, so I apologize. It's one of those days where I've not had enough coffee, and it just so I'm sorry, y'all. But yeah, they said I would like to see your take on Jeff Lemire's Moon Knight. So I started looking it up, and it's a really interesting take on the character. I'm not fully versed in Moon Knight, but anytime that I see him in a team up or whatever, I always enjoy him because he's kind of crazy. So that's Marc Spector in a nutshell. This one is volume, I think it's like volume 8 or 9. And it's kind of sad that Moon Knight's one of those characters that just could not get his series going up into the hundreds, or at least to my recollection. If I'm wrong, feel free to make fun of me down in the comments. Because they kept rebooting to #1 is what I mean in that regard. But anyway, this is a different take. It's really good. The print date is April 2016, and it's called Welcome to New Egypt. This is part 1 of 5. This is Jeff Lemire writing. Greg Smallwood art. Color artist is Jordi Belair. Letter is VC's Corey Petit, and that's the cover artist. And also, please let me know who created Moon Knight, because I absolutely have no idea, or else I would give a shout out to the original creators as well. Now, another thing that I do appreciate that they did here is up here at the top, they kind of gave a synopsis of how Moon Knight got his powers, saying mercenary Marc Spector died in Egypt under a statue of moon god Kishnu, I think, or Khonshu, I think is how you pronounce it, in the shadows of the ancient deity. Marc returned to life and took on Khonshu's aspect to fight crime for his own redemption. He went completely insane and disappeared for a time, but returned to protect those who travel by night. At least he thinks that's what has happened. So the concept of this comic book is nothing new. I like it though, because whenever they utilize it, it starts to make you question your reality. Now, in the opening pages, we see Marc looking to the moon, and he's talking to Khonshu. And I love the grittiness here. It just looks like someone, took some pastels or oils and just went to town on this work. He's like, "Can you hear me? Marc, is that you? I'm not sure." And then we see a representation of the statue that he died under initially. And you're just kind of like, what's going on here? He's scared, so he's talking to this deity. Like, "You're dying, Marc. But I don't want to die. It hurts." And just the grittiness of it helps to really add to the intensity of what we're reading. And then I like this aspect of just negative space, like we're in another dimension per se. It's like, if you're to be reborn, you must suffer through pain. It is the way of things, my son. And just the two of them sitting here like this, it just really adds to the moment. And then again, when he dons his mask, he sees who he's supposed to be, and you start to see all of his past as Marc Spector and as Moon Knight, and you start to see him screaming. And then we open up in an institution. Open your eyes. It's almost time to rise. And one thing that I do like is how they utilize the panels. Instead of just panel, traditional comic book reading, I like how first they kind of tell you where, let me turn the page, how they focus, and it leads your eye, and everything just looks a little disjointed. I really like that. And we see these, orderlies start to wail on Marc. So this kind of reminds me of Rob Zombie's take on Halloween when they just come in to start tormenting Michael. And again here, you see he goes to pull something out of his pocket, and it's a needle. I like that, because sometimes you'll miss those while you're reading the panels. You'll be like, wait a minute, where do you get the needle? Or where do we get this? And this just really helps leads your eye. And this kind of goes back to film. The camera is how the director and the DP, director of photography, leads your eye. They want you to see what they want you to see through the viewfinder. And this is the same way with the paneling. And again, speaking of paneling, look at this. When they shoot him up, look at how the panels start to shrink to nothingness. That's some good visual storytelling. Because like I've said before, comic books are a visual medium. And again, just look at the artwork. Whew. The art team did such a spectacular job. You know, Jeff Lemire has his dialogue where he needs it. But as you can see, it's not like 6,000 word, like long word balloons. It's just a few here or there to help intensify the story. Again, you kind of see him a little warped from the shock therapy. Time to wake up and smell the bacon, honey. You just need to get some fresh coffee on fire up the grill, and we're all set to open. And the great, look at the nastiness of this asylum. This reminds me of, I don't know how many of y'all have watched the Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt movie, 12 Monkeys. This is very akin to that. How I guess in the early 90s, a lot of asylums weren't really kept up to code, and you can just see how nasty they look. And then again, the juxtaposition of the artwork. I like how they're able to change their styles back and forth so quick, where we kind of get the more relatively clean lines of the asylum. But then when we see people's memories, like the girl saying, it's time to wake up and smell the bacon. She's sitting there, but we see in her mind, like, okay, let me show you. She goes, can't be my food. We haven't even tasted it yet. What's the frown for, Jake, honey? Can't be my food. You haven't even tasted it yet. So we see what she's actually seeing in her mind's eye. And I just like how it's scratchy and distorted. So we kind of see, is this reality that, and it's being warped, and that's why these are cleaner? Or is it vice versa, where they actually are in an asylum, and this is just, they cannot tell the difference of reality. Now, we meet this character named Crowley, either way, and he you start to see him as sort of the mentor. So you know how like when you go on a hero's journey, there's usually the mentor that dies or kind of helps set our hero on the right path. This is who Crowley reminds me of, because he stands up to the orderlies, and just all of a sudden he's just like really takes a shining to Marc. And he stands up to the orderlies. He goes, shut up, you're trapped, Crowley. What I tell you about bothering the other patients? Oh, I'm truly sorry, Robert. I only wanted a little morning conversation before my shock therapy. Good to flap the gums a bit. Wag the jaw before they're clamped shut, eh? And he also kind of reminds me of, if you guys have ever watched Jack Nicholson's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I haven't read the book yet. Oh, I cannot wait. But One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a really good film, and he just kind of reminds me of the Jack Nicholson character who just did not take flack from everyone. Now, again, we start to see some other things, like he starts noticing people in the asylum that he knows from his past life. And you're just kind of like, wait, okay, so what's going on here? Now, the reason I said that this idea is not new is as we're going over in the Legends of the Dark Knight, the story Masks, and then also what was that called? Last Night on Earth, which we have not gone over yet. We will, which was by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Awesome Batman story, but also throws Batman back into an asylum as well. So the idea of our heroes being in an asylum and questioning reality is nothing new. But what's always cool is you take an idea like that and then you expound and you make it your own. And that's what Jeff Lemire has done here, because he's talking to this counselor. And they know in this reality, or what we're thinking, there is a Moon Knight. We see it on the news. And Marc's like, no, I'm Moon Knight. And the counselor, you can just tell she, in a sense, she seems kind of cold and distant. She goes, yes, we've been through this again and again. You're an orphan. You've spent your entire life in this hospital. Moon Knight is your fantasy. You've been keeping a journal of his adventures since you were a boy. They're delusions, Marc. It never happened. And so we start to see this journal, and this kind of reminds me of Stephen King's not The Shining, The Stand, dadgummit, the Dark Tower series, where Jake is kind of questioning what he had been through with Ronan. Is that his name? Oh man. For those of you that read The Dark Tower, I can't remember the gunslinger's name. I think it's Ronan or Ronan. Let me know. But anyway, and Jake has this journal and he feels like he's going absolutely nuts until he goes back into the Dark Tower world. So I like that idea. And so he's laying in bed and he goes, Khonshu, can you hear me? Of course I can, my son. I'm always with you. And he's like, is it true what they said? This is all in my head? You already know the answer. Now stop whining like an infant. It is time. So his tormentors, the orderlies, come back. And this just kind of reminds me, like, I'm the great Cornholio. I need teepee for my head hole. And when he puts on his mask, he goes, I wanted to get your attention. I wanted to see your true faces. So you're kind of like, wait a minute, what? And this looks like the, I don't know if they're supposed to be the cats or the, as we see in old ancient Egyptian scrollings, how we see these type of like godlike cats. So I'm wondering if that's what those are supposed to be. But again, we get, I don't want to spoil the whole panel because I want you guys to buy this book, but we kind of see Marc go into action, but in between we see the violence and we just get the bits and parts of what he's doing to these demons or orderlies, whatever they may be. Now, he thinks he escapes and he thinks he's seen the real world. This is supposed to be New York. And you're just like, wait a minute, what? How can this be? But something happens and we're left with more questions than answers. So, guys, Moonlight #1. I'm trying to get the menu up. Sorry, guys. It's not working with me today whatsoever. Boop. Let's scroll back up. Yeah, I couldn't find it at my local comic shop, so I had to buy the digital one on the Marvel app. But this was a great series, or not series. I haven't read the whole series yet, but just the #1. I always enjoy how Jeff Lemire writes. One of his most standout recent works that really hit me in the feels and was absolutely phenomenal was his take on Old Man Logan, because he gave respect to what Mark Millar did back in the pages of Wolverine during the original Old Man Logan run. So, yeah, anything that has Jeff Lemire's name on, I'll read for the most part. I mean, there's always going to be hit and misses, but this is definitely a hit, guys. If you've enjoyed this, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. It helps the club channel more than you can possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little moon bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys can come to the channel. And we'd love to hear your feedback and talk with y'all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.